friends, we can all see that many white bloggers have millions of followers. Please support me too, because my followers are still few. Black bloggers also deserve to be famous. Raise fist medium dark skin tone. My friends, let's unite and lift each other up. Please press subscribe button and like. In the heart of Willowbrook Estates, a picturesque suburban neighborhood, the sun cast a warm glow over the manicured lawns and pristine sidewalks. It was a place where families thrived, children played, and community bonds were forged. But beneath the surface of this idyllic setting lay a tension that had been simmering for far too long. Mike Thompson, a single father, had moved to Willowbrook with his 5-year-old daughter, Maya, seeking a safe haven after years of struggle. He had worked tirelessly to provide for her, and this neighborhood seemed like the perfect place to build a new life. But as he pushed Maya on the swing at the local playground, the laughter and joy of their day were abruptly shattered. "Sir, step away from the child," Officer Reynolds barked, his voice slicing through the air like a knife. The sun glinted off his badge, but it was a fear in his eyes that sent a chill down Mike's spine. He tightened his grip around Maya, who clung to him, her small body trembling with confusion. Karen Henderson, the self-appointed president of the Homeowners Association, stood nearby, her phone raised like a weapon. "This man doesn't belong here," she shouted, her voice dripping with righteous indignation. "He's a stranger, and I'm calling security." Mike's heart raced as he faced a growing crowd, their eyes filled with suspicion. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice steady despite the chaos. "I'm here with my daughter, and we're not going anywhere." But Karen was relentless, her live stream capturing every moment, her followers flooding the comments with outrage and support. "He could be a kidnapper," she declared, her word hanging in the air like a dark cloud. The tension escalated as more officers arrived, their presence amplifying the fear that had taken hold of the playground. Mike felt the weight of their gazes, the judgment that came with being a black man in a predominantly white neighborhood. He had faced this before, but never like this, with his daughter watching. "Why is everyone staring at us?" Maya whispered, her innocent eyes searching for answers. Mike knelt beside her, brushing her curls back from her forehead. "It's nothing, baby, just grown-ups being loud." But the truth was far more complicated. As the officers demanded identification, Mike felt the walls closing in. He had always known that silence was his best defense, but today, silence felt like surrender. "I know my rights," he said, his voice firm, "and I won't let you turn this playground into a crime scene." Just as the situation seemed to spiral out of control, Mike made a decision. He pulled out his phone, dialing a number he knew would change everything. "This is Mayor Ross," a voice answered, calm and authoritative. "I'm on my way." The crowd fell silent, confusion rippling through them. Karen's confidence wavered as the reality of the situation began to sink in. Mike stood tall, holding Maya close, ready to face whatever came next. When Mayor Evelyn Ross arrived, the atmosphere shifted. She stepped out of her SUV, her presence commanding respect. "What's going on here?" she asked, her gaze sweeping over the scene. "This is my client, Mr. Michael Thompson," she said, her voice steady. "He will cooperate fully as soon as the nature of this alleged attainment is clarified." The officers exchanged glances, their authority suddenly challenged. "This is a misunderstanding," Officer Reynolds stammered, but the mayor's piercing gaze silenced him. "Ms. Henderson," Mayor Ross said, turning to Karen, "you've been live streaming a minor without consent and making public accusations based solely on racial bias. This is unacceptable." Karen's face flushed with embarrassment as the crowd began to murmur. The truth was unraveling, and she was losing her grip on the narrative she had constructed. "I was just trying to protect our children," she protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "From what?" Aisha Williams, a local physician, stepped forward, her voice strong. "From a father pushing his daughter on a swing? You've been profiling him based on your assumptions." The crowd began to shift, some residents stepping forward to support Mike. "I've seen him here with Maya," Robert Chun, a retired music teacher, said. "He's never been a threat." As the truth emerged, the weight of Karen's actions became clear. The mayor initiated a formal inquiry into the HOA's practices, exposing the systemic issues that had allowed discrimination to thrive in Willowbrook. The community was forced to confront its biases, and the playground became a symbol of change in the weeks that followed. The neighborhood transformed. Karen stepped down from her position, her influence dismantled by the very community she had sought to control. The HOA was restructured, now led by a diverse group of residents committed to inclusivity and accountability. Mike launched the Thompson Foundation, dedicated to supporting families affected by profiling and discrimination. He stood before a crowd of residents, sharing his vision for a better future. "We can't just answer injustice with policy," he said. "We have to answer it with power." As the sun set over Willowbrook, Maya played in her newly named garden, a place where every child belonged. The laughter of children echoed through the park, unburdened by fear. The community had begun to heal, and Mike knew that this was just the beginning. But just as things seemed to settle, a new challenge emerged. Karen, now a shadow of her former self, began to rally a small group of supporters who felt threatened by the changes. They whispered about reclaiming their neighborhood, about restoring the safety they believed had been compromised. Rumors spread like wildfire, igniting old fears and prejudices that had been buried beneath the surface point one evening. As Mike and Maya were leaving Community Center after a meeting, they were confronted by a group of residents who had once been allies. "You've gone too far, Mike," one of them said, his voice low and menacing. "You're making this place unsafe for our kids." Mike felt a surge of anger, but tempered it with resolve. Unsafe? Or just different? Change is hard, but it's necessary. We can't go back to the way things were. The confrontation escalated, and just as tensions reached a boiling point, a familiar voice broke through the chaos. "Enough!" Mayor Ross stepped forward, her presence commanding attention. "This isn't about division, it's about unity. We need to come together, not tear each other apart." The crowd fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Mike took a deep breath, sensing a shift. "We can't let fear dictate our actions," he said, his voice steady. "We have to choose understanding over suspicion." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the playground, the community stood at a crossroads. Would they embrace the change and work together to build a better future, or would they allow fear to tear them apart? In that moment, Mike realized that the battle for Willowbrook was far from over, but he also knew that with every challenge came an opportunity for growth. And as he looked at Maya, her eyes bright with hope, he felt a renewed sense of purpose. The garden of change was just beginning to bloom, and together, they would nurture it into something beautiful. The following morning, the community gathered for a meeting at the Willowbrook Community Center. The atmosphere was charged with anticipation, as residents were eager to discuss the recent events and the future of their neighborhood. Mike stood at the front, flanked by Mayor Ross and Aisha, ready to address the crowd. "Thank you all for coming," Mike began, his voice steady but passionate. "We're at a pivotal moment in our community. We have the chance to redefine what it means to be a neighbor, to create a space where everyone feels safe and valued." As he spoke, he could see the faces of his neighbors. Some were skeptical, others hopeful. But he knew that change wouldn't come easy. "We need to acknowledge the hurt that has been caused, not just to me and Maya, but to everyone who has felt marginalized or unwelcome here." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd, and Mike pressed on. "This is about more than just one incident. It's about the systemic issues that have allowed fear and prejudice to fester. We need to commit to listening to each other, to learning from one another." Just then, Karen stepped forward, her expression a mix of defiance and vulnerability. "I made a mistake," she said, her voice trembling. "I let my fears dictate my actions. I thought I was protecting my family, but I see now that I was wrong." The crowd shifted, some residents exchanging glances, unsure of how to respond. Mike felt a flicker of hope. "Acknowledging our mistakes is a first step toward healing," he said. "But we need to do more than just apologize. We need to take action." Karen nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I want to help. I want to be part of the solution, not the problem." The room fell silent as her words hung in the air. Mike took a deep breath, sensing the weight of the moment. "If you're serious, then let's work together. Let's create a community task force that focuses on inclusivity and education. We can hold workshops, discussions, and events that bring us together. Aisha stepped forward, her voice strong. We can also invite speakers from diverse backgrounds to share their experiences. It's crucial that we learn from each other's stories. As the crowd began to murmur in agreement, Mike felt a surge of optimism. This is our chance to build something beautiful, a garden of change where every voice is heard and valued. Just then, a young woman in the back raised her hand. What about the children? How do we ensure they grow up understanding and accepting each other? Mike smiled, grateful for the question. We can start by involving them in the process. Let's create a youth council that focuses on activities and events that promote friendship and understanding among kids of all backgrounds. The crowd erupted in applause, and for the first time, Mike felt a sense of unity among his neighbors. They were ready to embrace change, to confront their biases, and to build a community that reflected the values they all wanted to uphold as the meeting continued. Ideas flowed freely, and the atmosphere shifted from one of tension to one of hope. Mike knew that the road ahead would be challenging, but he also knew that they were no longer alone in this journey. Together, they would cultivate a garden of change, one that would flourish for generations to come. Dear listeners, did you enjoy today's story? If you are interested in the fate of our heroes, we will definitely prepare the next parts. Subscribe, because your attention and feedback are our greatest source of inspiration.